Big game at the top of the League One table at Portman Road this afternoon. Ipswich Town looked as if they were going to get it. They were going to get over the line and beat the leaders here. Didn't quite happen, sadly, Stu.
Deflating, isn't it? Frustrating. We thought it was going to be a really good day, a really entertaining day. Everything about this day was great, apart from those last few minutes where another lead, unfortunately, another win has just slipped through the fingers of Ipswich Town, and today would have been huge if they'd have been able to see it over the line, but it's finished 1-1.
Yeah, looked like Wes Burns' goal. A really, really well-struck effort from Wes Burns. Beat Michael Cooper for pace and power at his near post from the breakdown of a corner. It looked like that was going to be it. That was going to take the 3 points that would close that gap. It would have been 4 points with a game in hand to the leaders. Instead, Norwich Loney, Barley Mumba, again, for the second time this season, popped one into the back of the net from range. And that gap is still 7. Such fine margins, isn't it? Fine margins, and Ipswich on the wrong side of that today.
Yeah, Kieran McKenna's sat here and said that actually for the 63rd minute Burns scored, so for the best part of an hour, half an hour after that, Plymouth weren't banging the door down. It wasn't a barrage of shots and crosses and things like that, but I turned to you as that game went into stoppage time. 9 minutes went up on the board, correctly so, because there'd been loads of subs, a couple of injury stoppages, and I thought they were just starting to get a little bit deep and just inviting a little bit of pressure, and as you say, it had to be Barley Mumba who stepped inside from the right. Shot to a decent deflection off of the outstretched boot of Cameron Burgess and goes right in the top corner. And I'll be honest, I don't think we can complain with a draw. I think a draw was probably a fair reflection on this game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would agree with that completely in terms of the balance of the game. It can't feel like that though when the lead is yours going into stoppage time. It takes a very clear head to feel that game was a fair reflection, because when your team is leading it into stoppage time, it's just there. It's there for you. And that's the disappointment. And it's not, as you say, it's not the first time. Cameron Burgess has sat here and said that it's not for him. It's not even the first time a last-minute equaliser has gone in off of him. The Fleetwood one looped up and in off of him. Nothing he could have done about either of them, of course. He was doing everything he could to try and block a shot. But they hurt on the day, and they hurt you in the points table as well. And they're adding up now.
Well, there's a remarkable stat that we've kind of stumbled upon as a sort of a group effort between us and the Plymouth reporters post-match today. We know now that's 15 points dropped from winning positions for Ipswich Town this season. Plymouth have gained 15 points from losing positions this season, and that adds up to the 7-point gap remaining, with Plymouth ahead of Ipswich. Sheffield Wednesday win at Wickham today, so they've edged a little bit further ahead of Ipswich as well. And as you say, that a lot of those points have been lost in sort of 89th, 90th stoppage time goals. We're talking Fleetwood here, Sheffield Wednesday away, Charlton, of course, with all the drama that happened there. So those are just starting to add up a little bit, aren't they now?
Yeah, they are. Thankfully, they managed to rescue a point late at Portsmouth over the Christmas period. But yeah, it's not a great stat to have at this point in the season. What about the game, Stu? It was heavily billed. We were all looking forward to this one. 29,000 fans in here, the biggest crowd in some time, the biggest of the new regime here since they took charge of the club in 2021. And it felt like a big game, didn't it? Not just coming into the ground, not just inside the ground, but I think in the way that the game actually played out, this felt like a really big game between two teams that are chasing something, because I think both teams played this game not quite in the way that they might have done in other games. They didn't have things all their own way, like a lot of times they would have had this season.
Yeah. Nowhere else in the world do you get a third-tier football match with 29,069 fans creating that sort of atmosphere. There was a real intensity. Kieran McKenna had called upon the fans to make it a foreboding, formidable place for Plymouth, and they did just that. I thought the Plymouth fans were remarkable as well, 2,000 plus of them. It just made this feel like a proper football match. It almost felt like a derby game to me, and that was reflected in the action on the pitch. A few tackles flying in the first half. Two teams that are so used to dominating and controlling possession, but that made it a really frenetic football match. And they cancelled each other out in the first half. There wasn't any huge chances Freddie Ladapo had a moment where he really should have squared the ball to Wes Burns when Ipswich had men over in attack, a little bit greedy for him there. But there was nothing between them at half-time. And then second half, both teams rattled the woodwork.
Yeah.
Big chances, but particularly for Plymouth, wasn't it?
Yeah, what a few minutes that was. We'll start with the Ipswich one, which was a big chance in itself. A brilliant Leif Davis ball found Marcus Harness in 10 yards of space, it felt like. Ridiculous amount of space inside the box. And he's put a good effort on goal, but ultimately hasn't hit the target because he's hit the bar. That's not the target. That's not what you're aiming for. But that's in a different league to what we're about to talk about. Ryan Hardy, who down the other end, Niall Ennis down the right, neat ball in a really nice low measured ball into the 6-yard box for Ryan Hardy, and he's hit the bar with the goal at his mercy.
5 yards out.
Yeah, gaping at his mercy, begging Nan could have scored. All of those. it's in all of that territory,
Yeah.
and somehow he's managed to hit the bar, which Stephen Schumacher sat in the seat you're sat in now, and he was not very happy about that, but thankfully for him,
said, "We can laugh and joke about it now, but I wanted to kill him at the time," was the quote from Stephen Schumacher. So when you reflect on this game, had that gone in, then who knows what the complexion of this game would have been. Kieran McKenna said, yes, it's disappointing not to win, but also it was important we didn't lose that game today, and we could have been talking about a 10-point gap. Instead, it stays at 7. Ipswich do have a game in hand on Plymouth, and there's still a hell of a lot of football to be played going ahead, isn't there?
There certainly is, and some really big games as well. Obviously, Ipswich, this was a massive afternoon for the club. Beating the leaders here and closing that gap would have been huge. But if they're going to get to where they want to get to, there's going to have to be an awful lot more efforts like that this afternoon in front of bigger crowds. Probably not bigger, there's not any more seats, but those big crowds as the season rolls on, gets round to April time, all of the home games are going to feel like this today. If Ipswich are in the position we want them to be in when they get there. So hopefully the way this game felt today is something we're going to need to get used to, but they're going to need to come out on top in them and not just come away with points.
Yeah, cameo for George Hurst towards the end today, but no Nathan Broadhead. He missed out through some muscle tightness. Just a big week travelling to and from North Wales. He's had a few little injury niggles at Sunderland and Wigan, so they just a bit of a precaution with him. That was a disappointment not to have him as an impact player off the bench today, but hopefully he'll be involved at Oxford this coming Saturday. We'll see you there.